The rain came down so hard, it turned the world into moving water. Ruby Hale tightened her grip on the steering wheel as her old rescue truck pushed through the storm on Interstate 5. The wipers slapped back and forth in a frantic rhythm, barely keeping the windshield clear long enough for her to see the white lines dissolving under the flood. Wind shoved at the truck's frame like it was testing her resolve, and thunder rolled low and angry somewhere beyond the dark outline of the trees. She had driven this stretch of road more times than she could count. Late nights, early mornings, emergency calls from the Animal Rescue Center when someone reported a dog stuck in a ditch or a box of kittens left on the shoulder. Normally, the road felt familiar. Tonight, it felt hostile, empty, like the storm had swallowed every sign of life. Ruby leaned forward, eyes narrowed, her jaw set in concentration. She was tired, soaked to the bone from her last call, and she knew better than to linger on a night like this. You do not stop in storms. You do not pick up strangers on highways. That was common sense. That was survival. And yet, the loneliness of the road pressed in on her, broken only by the drumming rain and the hiss of tires cutting through water. No headlights ahead, no taillights behind, just her and the storm. That was when she saw him. At first, she thought it was debris, a trick of shadow near the guardrail, but then the shape moved. A man stood on the shoulder of the road, barely visible through the rain, swaying as if the wind might knock him flat at any second. He was soaked through, a thin white shirt clinging to his body, darkened by rain and streaked with mud. No jacket, no bag, no shoes. His feet were bare on the wet asphalt, toes curling as he tried to keep his balance. Ruby's foot lifted from the gas. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. This is a bad idea, her mind warned instantly. Every story she had ever heard, every safety lecture, every instinct sharpened by living alone screamed at her to keep driving. But the man lifted his head, just enough for her to see his face. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't waving her down or acting erratic. He looked terrified. Eyes wide, unfocused, darting toward the road behind him every few seconds. His arms were wrapped tightly around himself, not in defiance, but in desperation, like someone trying to hold their own body together. When another vehicle's headlights appeared in the distance, the man flinched violently, stumbling backward, his shoulders hunching as if he expected to be hit. The lights passed without slowing, but he stayed frozen long after, breath coming in sharp, uneven pulls. Ruby felt something twist in her chest. She had seen that look before. Not on people, on animals. Dogs trapped in floods, cats shaking under cars after accidents. That same raw fear, the kind that comes from being hunted, not reckless, from running too long without knowing where safety is. She slowed, then cursed at herself and pressed the brake again. "Don't do this," she muttered under her breath. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking against the rain. The truck idled beside him, engine rumbling low. Ruby cracked the window just enough for her voice to carry, icy rain slapping her cheek instantly. "Hey," she called, "are you okay?" The man startled like he hadn't realized anyone else existed. He turned toward her, eyes locking onto her face, and for a split second she saw panic flicker into something else. Hope. Thin, fragile, dangerous. Before he could answer, a black SUV roared past them in the far lane, tires slicing water into a violent spray. Its speed was wrong for the conditions. Too fast, too deliberate. The man recoiled sharply, ducking his head, stumbling back from the road as if the vehicle had aimed for him. A chill crawled up Ruby's spine. That reaction was not normal. She stared after the SUV as it disappeared into the rain, her pulse loud in her ears. When she looked back, the man was breathing hard, eyes locked on the darkness it left behind. Ruby hesitated only a second longer. She unlocked the passenger door. The click sounded unnaturally loud in the storm. "Get in," she said, her voice steady even though her heart was not. "You're freezing." The man stared at the open door like it might vanish. Then he moved, fast and clumsy, scrambling into the seat with shaking hands. Rainwater poured off him onto the floor, his chest rising and falling as if he had run for miles. Ruby shut the door and pulled back onto the road, hands tight on the wheel. She told herself she had made a mistake. But as she glanced at him, soaked, barefoot, terrified, flinching at every passing shadow, she knew one thing with painful certainty. Whatever had driven him into this storm was far more dangerous than her stopping had been. And somewhere behind them, a black SUV had already passed once. She had the unsettling feeling that it would not be the last time. The truck smelled like rain-wet fabric and old coffee as Ruby drove back onto the highway. The storm did not ease, it only changed, rhythm pounding harder against the roof, as if testing how much fear could fit inside such a small space. The man sat rigid in the passenger seat, water dripping from his hair onto the floor, his bare feet drawn back like he was afraid the truck might reject him. He did not look at Ruby. He did not thank her right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the side mirror. Ruby noticed things she could not ignore. The way his shoulders stayed tense, like he was braced for impact. The way his breathing followed a pattern, slow, then fast, then slow again, controlled but barely. This was not panic without reason. This was fear learned over time. She had seen it before in animals rescued from fighting rings or illegal breeders. Creatures that learned silence because noise brought pain. She kept her voice gentle. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head once, sharp and fast. "No." His voice was low strain, like words cost him something. Ruby nodded and reached for the heater, turning it up without asking. Warm air filled the cab, and the man flinched at the sudden noise, then stilled, embarrassed. She glanced at his feet. "You do not have shoes." Another pause. "No." Something heavy settled between them. People usually explained themselves when they needed help. They filled silence with excuses. This man did not. Ruby watched the road but spoke again. "What is your name?" His fingers curled tightly into the fabric of his shirt, knuckles white. "Adrian." Nothing else. No last name, no story. Ruby did not press. She learned long ago that fear loosens faster when it is not cornered. She reached into the back seat and pulled out her rescue jacket, thick, waterproof, oversized. "Here you are shaking." He hesitated, then accepted it like a gift he did not deserve. He pulled it around himself, breathing out slowly like warmth was something unfamiliar. "Thank you." The words came quiet, almost unused. As the miles passed, Ruby became aware of how alert he was. Every set of headlights made his jaw tighten. Every passing truck made his hand twitch toward the door. Then the radio crackled to life without warning. A traffic report cutting through the storm. The voice mentioned police presence increased along northern routes. Something about a canceled event. Private security. An investigation still unfolding. Ruby barely registered the words. Adrian did. "Turn it off." His voice snapped through the truck, sudden and sharp like a blade. Ruby jumped and shut the radio down immediately. Silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. She glanced at him. His face had gone pale, eyes locked straight ahead, breath shallow. Not fear. Terror. Ruby felt it then. A quiet certainty settling deep in her chest. Whatever he was running from was not small. Not personal. Not over. She slowed slightly, watching the mirror. A vehicle appeared, far back, headlights cutting through the rain, steady, controlled. Adrian noticed instantly. His body leaned closer to the window like he was tracking prey. "That is them." Ruby frowned. "That could be anyone." He shook his head slowly. "No." His certainty made her stomach drop. Ruby pressed the gas just a little. The distance stayed the same. She made a decision, then not fully conscious but instinctive. The same instinct that made her crawl into floodwaters for trapped animals. That made her break rules when lives were on the line. She spoke softly, grounding him. "You are safe right now." He did not answer at first. Then his voice broke just enough to be human. "I do not know how long safe lasts." Ruby tightened her grip on the wheel. The road stretched ahead dark and uncertain. Behind them, the headlights remained. And Ruby realized she had not just picked up a hitchhiker. She had taken someone hunted into her care. And once she did that, she did not know how to let go. The diner appeared out of the storm like a mirage. A low building wrapped in flickering neon. Its sign buzzed softly as Ruby pulled the truck into the lot. Rainwater pooled under the tires, and steam rose from the hood as the engine rested. Adrian did not move right away. He stared through the windshield at the lighted windows, where silhouettes shifted. People laughing, eating, living normal lives. His chest lifted and fell faster. "You can stay in the truck," Ruby said gently. "Or come and get warm." He swallowed, then nodded once. "Inside is better." They stepped into the rain together. The cold slapped Ruby awake as soon as she opened the door. Adrian hunched, instinctively pulling the jacket tighter around himself. His bare feet splashed across the pavement until they reached the entrance. Warmth hit them the second the door opened. Coffee, grease, and old vinyl. The sound of forks on plates, and a low hum of conversation. A few heads turned when they walked in, soaked and shaken. Then most looked away. Ruby chose a booth in the far corner away from the windows. Adrian slid in across from her, keeping his back to the wall. His eyes tracked every reflection in the glass. The waitress came by with a tired smile. "Coffee?" "Yes," Ruby said. "Two." The mug arrived steaming. Adrian wrapped both hands around it like it was an anchor. The heat made his shoulders drop just slightly. Ruby thought maybe this was it. Maybe the storm would pass, and whatever chased him would lose the trail. Then the television volume rose. Breaking news. The words cut through the diner sharp and sudden. Every conversation thinned. Ruby turned her head without thinking. The screen showed a massive estate, drenched in rain lights, flashing across iron gates. Men in suits moving fast. Security everywhere. The anchor spoke quickly. A high-profile wedding disrupted tonight. A groom missing under unusual circumstances. Connections to organized crime being investigated. Adrian froze. His hand slid from the mug. His breath stopped. The screen shifted to shaky footage. A man running across gravel in a white shirt. Rain pouring down. Mud streaked across the fabric. Headlights flaring behind him. Ruby felt the world tilt. It was him. Every line of his body, every movement, every flash of panic. The man she picked up on the roadside. The man sitting across from her now. The diner erupted in murmurs. People leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Someone laughed nervously. Another shook their head. Who runs from their own wedding? Must be mafia money. Must be dirty. Ruby did not hear them. She watched Adrian. His face had gone completely pale. His jaw locked tight. His fingers curled into the seat like he was bracing for impact. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Adrian." His eyes flicked to her. Raw, exposed. "You are him." He closed his eyes. Just for a moment. Then he nodded. The truth settled heavy and dangerous between them. The man she saved was not just in trouble. He was the center of it. The waitress returned oblivious. "Crazy story, huh?" She glanced at Adrian. "You okay, sir?" Ruby spoke fast, steady. "He was robbed. Hit his head. We are just waiting out the storm." The waitress hesitated, then shrugged. "Be careful." When she walked away, Ruby exhaled slowly. Her heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. Adrian leaned forward, his voice barely there. "You should leave me." Ruby met his eyes. "Not yet." Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the television replayed the footage again. And Ruby understood this night was no longer about kindness alone. It was about choice. And whatever she chose next, there would be no going back. The rain kept tapping against the diner windows like impatient fingers. Inside the booth, The world felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself was listening. Adrian did not touch the coffee again. His hands rested flat on the table, palms down, like he was holding himself in place. Ruby watched him closely. Now that she knew who he was, she saw everything differently. The way he held his back straight, even when exhausted. The way his eyes never fully relaxed. This was not arrogance. This was conditioning. "You do not have to explain," Ruby said softly. But the words felt too small for what hung between them. Adrian shook his head slowly. "No. You deserve the truth." His voice was steady, but thin, like a wire stretched too tight. That wedding was not about love. It was an agreement. Ruby did not interrupt. She let silence do the work. "My family is not a family," he continued. "It is a structure. A hierarchy. A system built on obedience." Ruby felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. "The woman I was supposed to marry was chosen years ago. Not by me. By men who shake hands over territory." His eyes flicked to the television, still glowing in the background. The image of the estate replaying again. "They call it a union. But it is ownership." Ruby swallowed. Her chest felt heavy. "Did you try to refuse?" she asked. Adrian let out a slow breath. "I was raised not to refuse. I was raised to comply." The words landed like weight. Every decision was approved. Every movement monitored. Even my silence was trained. Ruby thought of animals kept too long in cages. Fed on schedule. Moved on command. Never asked what they wanted. "Why tonight?" Ruby asked. Adrian looked down at his hands. "Because tonight I realized if I stayed, I would disappear." His voice trembled, then steadied. "They needed me visible. Smiling. Signing. Standing in front of cameras. I was never meant to lead. I was meant to absorb." Ruby frowned. "Absorb what?" "Blame. Violence. Collapse." The words settled heavy. "If the alliance failed. If the families turned on each other. I would be the one blamed. The symbol. The sacrifice." Ruby felt anger flare hot and sudden. "That is why they chased you." Adrian nodded once. "The SUV is not protection. It is retrieval." Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. Inside, Ruby felt something harden inside her. She leaned forward. "They are not going to take you back." Adrian looked at her then. Really looked. Surprise flickered across his face. "They will," he said quietly. "They always do." Ruby shook her head. "Not tonight." She did not know where the certainty came from. She only knew it felt true. Adrian studied her like she was something unreal. "Why did you stop?" he asked. Ruby answered without thinking. "Because you looked like something trapped." His breath caught. His shoulders sagged just slightly. "No one has ever said that to me." The diner door opened. A gust of rain swept in. Adrian flinched hard. Ruby glanced toward the window. Headlights appeared at the edge of the lot. Slow. Controlled. Adrian saw them too. "They found us." Ruby stood abruptly. "Money on the table." "Nah." Adrian hesitated. "If you help me, they will come for you." Ruby met his eyes steady, fierce. "I rescue what is hurting. That does not stop just because it is dangerous." The headlights crept closer. Shadows moved behind the glass. Ruby reached for his hand. "Come with me." Adrian stared at her hand. Then took it. And in that moment, everything changed. The moment they stepped outside the diner, the rain swallowed them whole. Cold, sharp, relentless. Ruby did not slow down. She pulled Adrian with her across the lot, her boots splashing through water, her heart hammering louder than the storm. Behind them, an engine started. Not rushed. Not panicked. Controlled. Adrian stiffened instantly. "They are here." Ruby did not look back. She reached the truck, yanked the door open, shoved him inside, then circled fast, slamming her own door as the headlights flared bright across the lot. The truck roared to life. Ruby hit the gas. Tires skidded for half a second before catching. In the mirror, she saw it. The black SUV easing out of its space. No sirens. No flashing lights. Just confidence. Adrian braced a hand against the dashboard. They will follow. They do not stop. Ruby turned sharply onto the service road beside the diner. Gravel sprayed behind them. The road narrowed fast trees, closing in on both sides like a tunnel. You know this area? Ruby asked. Adrian shook his head. Only the exits. Never the edges. Good, Ruby said. Because edges are where things hide. The road dipped suddenly. The truck bounced hard. Adrian bit back a sound. Headlights stayed with them. Not closer. Not farther. Steady. Ruby felt fear crawl up her spine, but she kept moving. This was not speed. This was patience. She took the next turn without signaling. Then another. Mud sprayed across the windshield. Branches scraped the sides of the truck. Adrian watched her in disbelief. You know where you're going. Ruby nodded. I have chased injured dogs through worse. The forest thickened. Rain softened under the trees. Then suddenly the road ended. Ruby slammed the brakes. The truck slid sideways and stopped inches from a fallen log. Behind them, the SUV slowed. Out. Nah. Adrian did not argue. They jumped from the truck and ran. The forest swallowed them instantly. Wet earth, moss, fallen needles. Ruby moved low fast, pulling Adrian after her. Branches clawed at their clothes. Her lungs burned. Flashlights cut through the trees behind them. Voices low, disciplined. Bring him back. Do not lose him. Adrian stumbled. Ruby caught him before he fell. She pressed him down behind a fallen trunk. Stay still. Breathe with me. He covered his mouth with shaking fingers. His eyes wide, terrified. A beam of light passed so close Ruby could see raindrops glitter in it. She did not move. Adrian trembled under her hand. She felt his heartbeat racing like something trapped. For a moment, time stretched. The storm faded. There was only breath and fear, and the space between survival and capture. The lights moved on. Voices faded. Ruby waited longer than felt necessary. Then another breath. Gone. For now. Adrian sagged against the log. You should have let me go. Ruby shook her head. No. His voice cracked. They will never stop. Ruby met his eyes. Then neither will I. Something shifted in him then. Not relief. Not safety. Trust. The rain continued falling. The hunt was not over. But in the dark forest miles from the world, two people who should never have met had chosen each other. And the Mafia had just learned. Its prey was no longer alone. They did not return to the truck. Ruby led Adrian deeper into the forest, moving along a narrow path she knew by instinct more than memory. The rain softened beneath the trees, turning into a steady whisper. Adrian followed without question. His steps uneven but determined. Trust had replaced hesitation, and that frightened him more than the men hunting them. After nearly an hour, the trees thinned. A low building emerged from the darkness. Faded siding. One security light flickering like it might give up at any moment. The animal rescue shelter. Adrian stopped short. This place. Safe, Ruby said. No one looks for monsters where kindness lives. She unlocked the side door quickly. Inside, warmth greeted them along with the soft sounds of animals sleeping. Breathing pause, shifting a distant whine. Adrian froze again. But this time it was not fear. It was disbelief. He stepped inside slowly, like he expected the walls to reject him. Ruby locked the door behind them. Then another. And another. "You can breathe here," she said. Adrian exhaled shakily. His shoulders dropped for the first time that night. Ruby grabbed towels and handed them to him. "Dry off. You are soaked through." He took them carefully like they were fragile. In the small staff room, Ruby pulled out a sweatshirt and a blanket. "It is clean. It will be big." "Big is fine," he said. She turned away to give him privacy. Listening to the quiet of the shelter. Animals shifted but did not bark. They sensed no threat. When Adrian returned his hair still damp sweatshirt hanging loose, he looked different. Younger. Lighter. Danger stripped away. Ruby led him into the kennel room. Rows of enclosures lined the walls. Inside were creatures in various stages of healing. A dog with a bandaged leg lifted its head. Another thumped its tail softly. Adrian stood still. "They are not afraid of me," he whispered. "Animals know," Ruby said. "They feel what people hide." A small brown dog slipped its nose through the bars and sniffed him. Then whined softly. Ruby blinked. "He does not do that." Adrian crouched slowly. The dog licked his fingers. Something in Adrian broke open then. His breath hitched. He pressed his forehead to the metal bars, just for a moment. "No one chooses me," he said quietly. The dog curled against the bars like it had made a decision. Ruby felt her throat tighten. She made instant noodles in the break room. Simple. Warm. Real. Adrian ate slowly like the act itself mattered. "No one has ever fed me like this," he said. Ruby frowned. "What do you mean?" "They feed me. But not like this. Not because I need it." The words settled heavy. She showed him the cot. "You can sleep." He hesitated. "They might find me." Ruby shook her head. "Not tonight." Adrian lay down stiff at first. Then exhaustion won. The brown dog escaped its kennel again and curled against him. Ruby watched him sleep. Really sleep. For the first time since she met him. His face relaxed. Outside the storm continued. Inside something fragile formed. Safety. And Ruby knew it would not last. Because kindness in a violent world always attracts attention. And the Mafia never loses what it believes it owns. Dawn arrived without mercy. Gray light crept through the high windows of the shelter, thin and cold. The storm had softened, but the danger had not. Ruby was in the hallway refilling water bowls when she heard it. Tires on gravel. Slow, deliberate. Her body went still. The sound came again, closer this time. Then another engine. Ruby felt the blood drain from her face. "They are here." She moved fast back toward the staff room. Adrian was already sitting up on the cot, the brown dog pressed against his side. He had not slept deeply. People like him never did. "You heard it too?" he asked quietly. Ruby nodded. "We have to move." Before she could say more, shadows passed the frosted glass at the front entrance. Voices followed, low, calm, practiced. "This is a small building. Split up." Adrian closed his eyes. "I told you," he said. "They will never stop." Ruby grabbed his wrist. "We still have time." They moved through the back hallway, lights off, feet silent. The shelter felt different, now no longer peaceful, but alert, like the animals sensed what was coming. A door opened nearby. Footsteps echoed. Adrian stopped suddenly. "No." Ruby turned toward him. "What?" He looked at her with an expression that hollowed her chest. "This ends now." Before she could react, he gently removed her hand from his arm. "They will hurt you if I keep running." Ruby shook her head fiercely. "I can hide you again." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ruby, listen to me. They want me. Not you. Not the shelter. Not the animals. If I surrender, they stop." Her chest tightened. No, they will cage you. Adrian nodded. But you will be safe. A shout echoed from the front. Check the back rooms. The brown dog whined softly. Ruby grabbed Adrian again. Please. He looked at her like he was memorizing her face. You gave me one night without fear. One night where I was not owned. His voice trembled. I cannot repay that by destroying your life. He leaned forward, resting his forehead briefly against hers. A quiet goodbye. Then he stepped away. Adrian, no. He moved toward the front hallway, just as boots thundered closer. Ruby followed helpless. He raised his hands before they even asked. I am here. 3 men appeared, flashlights trained on him. Hands up. Move slowly. Adrian obeyed. One of them grabbed his arm, firm, efficient. No anger. No cruelty. Just control. Ruby stepped forward. Leave him. Adrian looked back at her just once. Do not follow. They led him out the door. The brown dog barked once, sharp and distressed. Ruby stood frozen as the engines started again. The SUV doors closed. Tires crunched. Then silence. The shelter felt emptier than it ever had. Ruby sank onto the floor, shaking. Anger, fear, grief crashing together. She had lost him. Or so they thought. Ruby wiped her face and stood. No. This was not over. Adrian had surrendered to protect her. Now she would fight to free him. The Mafia had taken him back. But they had underestimated one thing. Ruby Hale did not abandon what she rescued. And she was just getting started. The city rose out of the morning fog like a concrete threat. Ruby had never liked places where buildings blocked the sky. They felt like cages, even when the doors were open. She parked 3 streets away from the compound that everyone in the city pretended was just another private office tower. No sign. No name. Just cameras and men who did not look curious. Her hands shook as she stepped out of the truck. Fear was there, yes. But something stronger pushed her forward. Resolve. She walked with purpose because hesitation attracts attention. She kept her head down and moved when doors opened. Followed people who looked like they belonged. Slipped through security gaps the same way she slipped through fences, chasing injured animals. Inside, the air was cold and polished. Stone floors muted every sound. Voices echoed somewhere deeper, sharp, controlled. She followed them. The council chamber was larger than she expected. A long table. Dark wood. Men seated like judges. And at the far end of it, Adrian. He stood between 2 enforcers, his posture straight, his face calm, in a way that made Ruby's chest ache. This was the version of him they had built. Composed, obedient, contained. A man at the head of the table spoke. His voice carried weight without volume. You ran from your obligation. From your blood. From your name. Adrian did not answer. Another voice cut in, harsh. The marriage was finalized in every way that mattered. You humiliated us. Ruby stepped forward before she could think. Stop. The word echoed. Every head turned. Adrian looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. Ruby. Shock rippled through the room. Anger. Curiosity. This woman does not belong here, someone snapped. Ruby kept her ground. Neither does he. The man at the head of the table stood slowly. You have no idea where you are. Ruby met his gaze. I know exactly where I am. I am in a room where men decide other people's lives without asking. Murmurs spread. Adrian found his voice then. She should not be here. Ruby shook her head. You should not be here. She turned back to the council. You call this loyalty. You call this tradition. But it is control. One of the men laughed cold. You picked up a snake, and now you think you understand it. Ruby stepped closer to Adrian. No. I picked up a man who was drowning. Silence fell heavy. The man at the head leaned forward. You think you saved him? Ruby nodded. I know I did. A different voice spoke quieter, more dangerous. Tell her what you are. Adrian swallowed. His hands clenched. Tell her what you were built for. Ruby felt something shift. The air tightening. Adrian lifted his head. I was never meant to lead. The room stilled. I was meant to be visible. Replaceable. The one blamed when alliances cracked. Murmurs turned sharp. Ruby stared at him. What? Adrian looked at her, pain etched deep. The marriage was not to give me power. It was to trap me. The head of the table slammed his palm down. Enough. Adrian did not flinch. I ran because if I stayed, I would disappear. Ruby felt heat flood her chest. Anger, clarity, purpose. She pointed at the men. You fear him choosing his own life, because it proves he was never yours. The room erupted. Voices overlapping. Then a woman spoke. Clear, shaking, but strong. I was never his choice either. Heads turned. The bride stood from the shadows, pale, furious, resolute. They promised me a crown. They gave me a cage. Everything cracked then. Arguments. Threats. Raised voices. Adrian stepped forward. No more. The room quieted. I am done being owned. Ruby watched him straighten. Something uncoiling inside him. This ends now. For the first time. He was not running. He was standing. And the Mafia Council realized too late. Their most controlled asset had become their greatest defiance. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Voices that had been raised only moments before fell into a dangerous silence. The man at the head of the table leaned back slowly. Power did not leave his posture. It sharpened. You are forgetting who you belong to. Adrian did not step back. He did not lower his gaze. He stood exactly where he was. I belong to no one. The words landed heavy. Final. Ruby felt a tremor pass through the room. Fear disguised as anger. Men who had never been challenged suddenly, unsure. You would throw away everything. The man snapped. Your name. Your protection. Your future. Adrian nodded once. Yes. A different voice cut in. Cold, amused. You think you can walk away alive? Ruby felt her heart pound. She stepped forward again before fear could stop her. If you kill him, the world watches. You have already lost control of the story. Murmurs followed. That was the truth they hated. The bride stepped forward then. Her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. This alliance was never about unity. It was about leverage. About using him as a shield. The men turned on her. Sit down. She did not. You threatened me. You threatened him. You call that honor? The room fractured. Adrian turned to Ruby. His voice low, urgent. If this goes wrong. Ruby met his eyes. It already went wrong. Long before tonight. The man at the head stood again. His gaze locked on Adrian. You were bred for this role. Adrian exhaled slowly. Then spoke the truth they had buried. I was bred to fail. The silence that followed was deafening. They needed someone to absorb the fallout. Someone visible enough to blame. Obedient enough not to fight back. He looked around the table. At men who had shaped him. That was my purpose. Ruby felt tears burn behind her eyes. This was the reveal. This was the truth beneath the chase. Adrian lifted his chin. I will not be your sacrifice. One man slammed his fist down. You will sign. Adrian shook his head. No. If you walk out that door, you're nothing. Adrian turned to Ruby then. Really looked at her. His voice softened. If I lose everything, will you still see me? Ruby did not hesitate. I saw you when you had nothing. Something shifted in him, a final knot loosening. He turned back to the table. Then I choose nothing. The bride exhaled sharply, as if she had been waiting for permission. I choose the same. Chaos erupted. Men shouting. Chairs scraping. Orders barked. But Adrian stepped away from the table. Toward the exit. Ruby moved with him. Shoulder to shoulder. The man at the head shouted. Stop him. No one did. Fear had replaced obedience. Adrian paused at the door. Turned back one last time. You built a throne out of fear. And called it power. I choose freedom. He walked out. Ruby followed. Behind them, the empire cracked. Alliances collapsing. Control unraveling. And for the first time, Adrian was not running. He was leaving. And nothing would ever own him again. Chapter 9. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Voices that had been raised only moments before fell into a dangerous silence. The man at the head of the table leaned back slowly. Power did not leave his posture. It sharpened. You are forgetting who you belong to. Adrian did not step back. He did not lower his gaze. He stood exactly where he was. I belong to no one. The words landed heavy. Final. Ruby felt a tremor pass through the room. Fear disguised as anger. Men who had never been challenged suddenly, unsure. You would throw away everything the man snapped. Your name. Your protection. Your future. Adrian nodded once. Yes. A different voice cut in. Cold, amused. You think you can walk away alive? Ruby felt her heart pound. She stepped forward again before fear could stop her. If you kill him, the world watches. You have already lost control of the story. Murmurs followed. That was the truth they hated. The bride stepped forward then. Her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. This alliance was never about unity. It was about leverage. About using him as a shield. The men turned on her. Sit down. She did not. You threatened me. You threatened him. You call that honor? The room fractured. Adrian turned to Ruby. His voice low, urgent. If this goes wrong. Ruby met his eyes. It already went wrong. Long before tonight. The man at the head stood again. His gaze locked on Adrian. You were bred for this role. Adrian exhaled slowly. Then spoke the truth they had buried. I was bred to fail. The silence that followed was deafening. They needed someone to absorb the fallout. Someone visible enough to blame. Obedient enough not to fight back. He looked around the table. At men who had shaped him. That was my purpose. Ruby felt tears burn behind her eyes. Adrian lifted his chin. I will not be your sacrifice. One man slammed his fist down. You will sign. Adrian shook his head. No. If you walk out that door, you're nothing. Adrian turned to Ruby then. Really looked at her. His voice softened. If I lose everything, will you still see me? Ruby did not hesitate. I saw you when you had nothing. Something shifted in him. A final knot loosening. He turned back to the table. Then I choose nothing. The bride exhaled sharply, as if she had been waiting for permission. I choose the same. Chaos erupted. Men shouting. Chairs scraping. Orders barked. But Adrian stepped away from the table. Toward the exit. Ruby moved with him. Shoulder to shoulder. The man at the head shouted. Stop him. No one did. Fear had replaced obedience. Adrian paused at the door. Turned back one last time. You built a throne out of fear. And called it power. I choose freedom. He walked out. Ruby followed. Behind them, the empire cracked. Alliances collapsing. Control unraveling. And for the first time, Adrian was not running. He was leaving, and nothing would ever own him again. 6 months later, the rain returned to the Pacific Northwest, but this time it felt different. Softer, gentler, like it no longer carried threat. Ruby stood at the edge of the rescue yard, watching dogs run through wet grass tails high free. The shelter had changed. New fencing, new medical rooms, new volunteers. But the heart of it remained the same. Kindness first. Behind her, a door opened. She did not turn. She already knew. Adrian stepped out wearing old jeans boots, stained with mud, a simple jacket. No guards. No suits. No shadows watching from corners. He looked lighter. Not because his past had vanished, but because it no longer owned him. The world had not ended when he walked away. The Mafia fractured without its symbol. Alliances collapsed. Men turned on each other. Fear did what fear always does. It devoured itself. Adrian lost his name, his inheritance, his protection. But he kept his life. Ruby turned toward him. "You fixed the gate again." He smiled faintly. It was crooked. She crossed the yard and handed him a leash. A nervous rescue dog waited at her feet, shaking uncertain. "Try." Adrian knelt, slowly letting the dog come to him. No commands. No pressure. Just patience. The dog leaned. Ruby felt her chest tighten. "You know," she said quietly, "people still talk about you." Adrian shrugged. "They always will. Are you afraid?" He looked up at her. No. That was the truth. At night he still woke sometimes. Old habits died slowly. But now when fear came, he had somewhere to place it. With her. With the animals. With work that healed instead of destroyed. They walked along the fence together, rain misting their faces. "Do you ever regret it?" Ruby asked. Adrian stopped. Thought. Never. He turned to her fully. "I regret staying as long as I did." She nodded. Understanding. They drove later that evening to the stretch of Interstate 5, where it had all begun. The road looked ordinary now. Cars passed. Lights glowed. Life moved on. Ruby leaned against the guardrail. Hard to believe one choice changed everything. Adrian stood beside her. "You did not save a mafia boss." She glanced at him. "No. You saved a man." He looked at her, then with the same vulnerable honesty she had seen that first night in the storm. "You were my first real choice." The words held weight. Ruby breathed in cool air. "And I would make it again." Adrian stepped closer, not rushing. Giving space. Always choice. "Can I stay beside you?" he asked. "Not run. Not hide." Ruby smiled softly. "You already are." The rain slowed. The road stretched ahead. Two lives once pulled into darkness, by fear now, standing in quiet light. All because someone stopped when they almost did not. And somewhere a destiny built on violence collapsed. Replaced by something far rarer. A future chosen freely.